Welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. This is the podcast where we break open our emotions from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and I am here today with Dr. Glenn Hill, marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, his incredible wife, Phyllis, and their son and daughter-in-law, Sky and Meg Hill. I am recording this intro after we've already had the conversation, and I'm so glad I did so I can confidently say, listen to this episode all the way through. There are so many incredible hot takes, like little moments that were said that I wish I'd had my notepad. Like I need to be taking notes of things to apply to my own life and family. So if you have a pen close by, grab it. Listen, if you have a child that can feel a little difficult sometimes, or you need more direction and tips on logistics in parenting, this is the episode for you. So we're going to dive in.
Hello, world.
Hi, friends. Well, this is an amazing and special podcast for us to have our son and daughter-in-law. And part of the reason why we asked you guys to be with us is because we are launching our parenting masterclass. And, you know, a lot of people, I think, have heard our story, our marriage story, but they're always curious about our story as a family, our story as parents. And there's times that we mention something and someone will say, oh, I've never heard that. So we realized, especially because our oldest daughter, Echo, is on the masterclass with us. She's the one who's got 5 children, and we love having her teach with us. But a lot of times people want to know more about our other children. So we're thrilled today to have Sky and Meg on the show with us. And, you know, part of the question that comes often with people is, okay, what was it like growing up in our home, especially with Dr. Hill? And so, let's start there, Sky. Just any memories or any, like, what was it like growing up in our family?
Yeah, and I'm excited. A big part of today is for you, for both of you, as far as your own childhoods, what worked and what didn't work, the things that stand out to you, but then also the things because you now also have children. You have a 13-year-old son and a 9. Can't remember when she turned 10. 9-year-old precious little girl. And, you know, what are the things that you have seen work and not work? And in particular, from your own childhood, where you go, well, I remember that with Dad. I sure as heck wasn't going to repeat that with my kids, because you have a great perspective in that, you know, to be able to see the things that worked and didn't work. And I always share with the audience, just so you know, that one of the times I laugh the hardest is when my 4 children get together and they lie a little bit and they twist and embellish a bit. But when the 4 of you get together talking about growing up with your father and just the stories. And we also talk a lot about the power of the 3 phrases for me to be able to say to you kids that, yep, I missed it. Wow, I missed it. You know, feel guilt about that. I really missed on that. And the power of that and how kind and gracious and compassionate you kids are with us to realize, Mom and Dad missed it. They, you know, they were giving it their best shot. They had no bad intentions. They didn't have bad motivation. They just didn't have the right tools. And so they missed stuff with us. So there we go. Take it away.
Okay, so the question is, what was it like growing up? Like, what were some specific memories? God, there's tons of them. I mean, I think the overarching theme as a kid was peace. I grew up in what I considered a peaceful home. Looking back, I was the challenging component of that peace, but I didn't know that as a kid. So, there was consistency and peace. What was the feeling I left, and I remember that sinking in probably late teenage years. Just having conversations with friends about things that I thought were really normal. No, I didn't think they were normal. I didn't even think about them. That was just my life. Right. And I thought that was everyone else's life as well. And hearing that that's not what the typical childhood looked like. And so that gave me, there was, internally there was a shift of just appreciation and thankfulness that that's what I grew up in. And I think now in reflecting back on y'all as parents, me as a kid, which again, I want to be very clear, that was difficult to parent me. Lots of passion. That's the kind way to say it to myself. Was that you can only do the things that you know how to do. So if you don't have the tools to parent your kids in a way that you want to, because I think most parents, at least that are probably listening to this, they want to be good parents. There's such a drive and a desire, and I'll speak for both of us. Like, we want to be great parents. But if you don't have the tools, then you can't instill that in them. And recently we were talking with someone, and they shared that if you're looking at the people around you, so if you're looking at other parents and going, okay, I see their kids, I want to be a parent like they are because I love the way that their kids interact with them. And the analogy that was told to us was, so if you're looking at everyone else fishing and catching fish, and the analogy of catching fish as being a good parent, and they're out on a nice bass boat in the middle of a pond, and they're just pulling them in consistently, pulling them in. So they're successfully parenting very well. And you're on the shore trying to dive in and catch fish, and you're confused. You're sitting there going, I don't get it, because they want to be good parents, and I want to be a good parent. And we're both putting in effort, but they are bringing back catch after catch after catch, and I'm starving to death. I have no fish. And to me, in hindsight, like things like the connection codes and stuff that I've learned in my adult life is the realization that you're only capable of doing with the tools that you have. And so, I just have so many memories, Dad, of you wanting to catch fish. You wanted to be such a great dad. You were present. You were tuned in. You were aware and made space for me. But I was passionate, and it was challenging. I think for you because you didn't have the tools. There wasn't a clear communication style that worked for both of us. We were very different in a lot of ways, and I think that was always, again, reflecting back, difficult both as a son, but I would assume as a dad. Like, I'm saying these things, but they're not resonating. Like, what's happening? What am I missing? So, that was. I mean, I don't know if that's specific memories, but yeah, it was a precious childhood that I do, especially when our kids were young and we were just flying by the seat of our pants trying to figure it out. We had kids really young. I was 20. We were talking about this morning. I was 22. You were 23, something like that. So we had no idea what we were doing, and I just remember having a lot of, okay, so this is what I remember, so this is what I'll do. This is we'll always read at night. We'll always be excited to see him when I come home. I remember, I'll sit in the driveway and try to decompress before I come inside, so that the kids don't care or are aware that I had a stressful day. Like, this is just the first time they're seeing me, so I want to be present, dial in, and fake it maybe a little bit. Well, a lot of it that season of our life, but just that moment of like bringing positive energy. I love, not the quote, but the concept of your kids didn't choose to be your kids, but you chose to have kids. So it's your responsibility, in my opinion, to be the best parent you can be. And I think the way that we have really leaned into that over the past few years is being pretty obsessed with go get more tools. Just grow as much as you can. I'm going to be quiet after this, but I think that a huge lesson that I've learned as Asher's gotten older, and I've reflected back on the mistakes that I've made, is that I don't know that my kids, at least, I'll just speak for my family, I don't know that my kids listen to anything that I say. I think they just pay attention to what I do. So if I talk to them about being kind, but I'm mean to Meg, they're like, that's not congruent. That doesn't line up. So that piece must not be true. And that's been convicting over this new season, probably the last year or two, of like, that's on me. I've got to be what I'm telling them to become, or stop talking about it. Like, and don't be confused why they're not behaving or in line with my teachings if I'm not living them first. So that's my soapbox.
That's so good. Well, I love that. And we're not necessarily fishing for specific stories. It's more, I think sometimes, and I actually was talking to a dad this morning because I think we want results. We want immediate results, actually. If our kid is melting down, we want a formula. We want a tool that will immediately bring a different reaction, a different response. And part of what I was saying is that with us as parents and our family, I think we kind of saw the long haul. We want to stay connected. Right, we were not always striving. We didn't have a ton of rules. We didn't have curfews. We didn't, as you were going into teenage years, like we were more about the heart. We wanted your heart, and we wanted to stay connected to you. And I think sometimes as parents, we kind of have we just want total obedience. That's what we're striving for with our kids, and we'll do it. We'll do whatever it takes to get total obedience out of our children, even if it costs us the connection. Even if we lose connection with them, when they're 10, 15, 18, 100.
Especially 100
years old. 100.
Yeah, all those 100-year-old kids. Wow.
Even with our married kids, it's like, yeah, but they were obedient. It's like, wow, really? Is that really what we're striving for? Are we striving to stay connected? And I love that, with what you were saying, even we don't have the tools. So many of us just didn't have the tools. And it's kind of that idea of being able to go, man, I really miss that with you. Like to be able to say that to our kids is so powerful. And especially as you're learning other tools, even what you were just saying, if you're unkind to Meg, but you're trying to teach your kid to be kind, that there's such an inconsistency there. But to even come to that realization and then to be able to go, you know what, guys, I really missed on that. I was not kind to your mom in that, and I really want to be kind. And it's like your kids soak that stuff up. Kids are extremely forgiving. And give you chance after chance after chance. It's a beautiful thing, but it's kind of creating that space that we're growing together. We're in this together. We're a team. Creating that team atmosphere in a family is so huge. And I know that we were criticized a lot as we were parenting because we kind of took a different road on most things. And, I remember at one point somebody saying to us that part of your issues was because we didn't come to all of your baseball games.
Sure.
And it was like, I don't think that's his only, I don't, I never could quite buy into that. And I loved that I remember you and I having a conversation, and you guys said to us, hey, Mom and Dad, it's okay that you don't come to all of my baseball games. Like, that's not... this other parent was like, no, that is what makes good kids is if you attend every sporting event they ever have. And what's sad now, many, many years later, is I look at those families now, those parents who showed up for their kid at every single ball game, and they're not connected. They have adult children now that they're not connected with. So I'm like, okay, that was not truth. You saying that to us was not the truth. Us staying connected to you went far beyond showing up at every ball game. It was going after the heart that I think made such a difference, which may be kind of what you were just saying with what we were living out versus just our words, right? Like the relationship we had with you through thick and thin. And you did mention that you were very passionate. I love that. Yeah, I love that. So,
well, even with like our child that's passionate, when we would have meltdowns with him, I think it was actually good that like he could remember, like in his brain, I know what's going on in his brain right now. But at the same time, the other thing that I remember that kept me grounded when I was football grasping him through Target, him screaming, was a lot of times in parenting, we're worried about what everybody else is thinking. We're not worried about what's going on inside of our child. And I think it comes from a long line of like, it's an identity piece. Like, so that child is being bad. That's a reflection of me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe, but maybe also they're just really wanting that toy in the back that they're feeling so sad that they didn't get. So I think that's another thing that we have to remember is, you know, when kids are freaking out, we have many stories about one of our children of him freaking out, but it just, at the end of the day, what mattered wasn't what everyone else was feeling in the room. It mattered what he and we were feeling. Yeah. And that is what I think keeps you connected as parent and children. Because there would have been multiple times where it would have been like, I could have lost my mind on him, you know?
We did.
Yes.
We did lose our mind on him.
We did that too.
Oh, I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we also, there were also moments where I had to go, because I was a stay-at-home parent at the time, and I was with every parent, every moment I felt like during the day I was handling. So there were more moments that I could have lost it, and I just had to keep remembering those people won't see you tomorrow, and those people won't wake up at your house, and they, you know, all of those things. So I do think there is a huge identity loss with a parent when a child freaks out. It's like, what am I doing? Am I not doing good enough? Is that why this child is doing this? When you've got one of those kids, they just feel so different. They challenge you. They're intense. Like, even some of the things you talk about in your childhood, but when you look at them as adults, there are these like incredibly world changers, leaders, and you in your brain you just have to go, they're going to be great. They are great, but they're going to be better. You know, like you just have to keep saying that. So, but I do think that's a big piece.
Yeah, and I think that speaking on that, like hindsight's always clear vision, but the realization that I didn't have when especially our oldest was younger, that I do now, is parenting is seasonal. So there was that. So much of the way I interacted with him early was one, fear of, okay, how are people perceiving our family? Strangers, mind you. Like, these are not people I know.
In Five Guys. Yeah. We're not talking about like family members.
I'll never talk to them again. Who cares? But so the fear of how we're being perceived, but then also the fear of what this will translate into as a 25-year-old man. And what I've realized is, as long as I do my job, the responsibility of being a good father and husband, I think those have a very dual role in the way your kids are brought up. But if as long as I do a good job, he's not going to end up in prison. So don't think that because he smeared ketchup on the table, I'm speaking to myself, Sky, don't think because he smeared ketchup on the table, he's going to murder someone at 21. And so many of my actions as a disciplinary dad were driven by that. Oh my gosh, he's going to, and maybe not even that extreme, but you know, he's going to end up living in the basement as, you know, 200 pounds overweight playing video games. Like let's die on this hill today to prevent him from living in a basement. Yeah. And as I've gotten older, the realization that if I lean into what's happening for him, he's aware of what's going on typically more than I am. And there's a lot to talk about. And it has nothing to do with him becoming a serial killer. It has to do with whatever. And oftentimes, and connection codes were big for the conversations, the dynamic in the four of us, our family, was what's happening for you. Like leaning into, okay, so you're smearing ketchup or throwing a Coke across the room. We've got lots of really fun stories. Because yesterday at school, somebody made fun of you and you're feeling a lot of hurt and sadness and shame and guilt. Wow. And that's just turning into you hitting your sister. Where I don't need to, he knows we don't hit people in our family, because we don't hit people in our family. So that he knows that. I don't need to hammer that lesson home. What I need to do, what you say, is stay connected to him and lean into, hey, dude, what's happening? Because that, to me, is what, one, keeps us together, and two, helps him the next time with a tool of what is happening for me.
Wow.
But I will say, too, I've noticed, well, the older he's gotten, so I think he's able to process a little bit faster before he speaks or acts or whatever. Once we integrated the connection codes of what's happening and realizing, like you just said, he's not trying to just be so disobedient. Like, he's not trying to, how do you say that? Like, he wasn't trying to take charge of the whole situation necessarily. He just didn't know how to communicate that well. Yeah. And then also, I think the healthier we are as individuals and as like a couple, that's changed everything. Like, I think what we sometimes are like, I want to be such a good parent, but I'm not going to take the time to work on myself. Like, how can you be a whole parent if you're not even a whole, human? So I deal with like, fear, and that's kind of my go-to is fear. And so like, he was scared a lot, and I'm like, probably because his mother is scared, but I didn't know that about myself enough to slow down and go, buddy, like, I get it. I feel those same feelings. And when they hear you say that you feel the same feelings, it gives them some safety of like, I'm not losing it. I'm just, my mom feels that same way too. I think sometimes as parents, we try to be like, we don't want to show them our weaknesses because we want to let them know we're in control. But like, sometimes showing them our weaknesses is actually what gets them to open up and go, oh, you feel that too? Yes. So with Addie, our youngest, she will come to me and have like fears and stuff. And as soon as I say, I felt that, I know how that feels, she instantly is like, it like brings, she like comes into like my arms and, okay. Like, I'm normal, like whatever normal is. But I think that's a big
I'm
thing.
like you. I can connect with you. I mean, that's what they want. I think all kids, no matter how functional or dysfunctional of a family you have, until they don't, and that's a scary, sad part. But until they don't, all they want to do is be with you and be like you. So, and again, that is a massive responsibility, and take it as such. Like, I think that parenting cannot be passive. Parenting well cannot be passive. And so, I think the more that you realize that this is a team, which really goes against some of the ways that I grew up, not necessarily at all from y'all, but just the outside voices of there's the parents and the kids submit to that. You spoke to something about obedience. And I think I've read several studies. There's less and less data that's valuable. And it's actually somewhat unique just to the Western culture. Globally, that's not a typical standard. There's quickly, at a young age, responsibility for the kids to participate in the team. Like, you participate both emotionally and relationally, but also physically. Like, chip in. It's your job to participate around the house. And I recently read a book. You recommend it to Hunt, Gather, Parent, I believe is what it is. Highly recommend that book. But it talks a lot about that, of that collaborative piece of how do we engage as a family unit to win, not how do we engage as a family unit for you to do what I say. Because I believe that is not very human. It doesn't connect with, like, I don't do that. Like, if an authoritative figure tells me, like, just do it because I say, which I'm passionate, so I just can't. I'm like, I don't care what it is. I was going to do that, and I won't. So I think that idea to lean into of make it make sense for them. It doesn't mean that there's times where, I think you use that example a lot, running out in the middle of the road. There's times where it's like,
that's so rare.
You just listen right now. You have to. But the majority of life is relational. There's a flow to it.
And what we find is that if, in fact, the parent is able, and this is true in business leadership, whatever, if, in fact, the leader is able to exert their will over the other kind of hopes that it fails, because then they can blame the leader because they're not on board. They're not on the team. And so if I tell this person, you do this because I said so, I'm an authority, you're not. I always quote Matilda, you're I'm smart, you're dumb, I'm big, you're small, there's nothing you can do about it. So now this person is not united with me. They're walking out the door going, okay, fine, I have to do it. I hope it messes up, because then I can turn back and go, it was his fault. He's the one that told me to do it. Whereas I want them on my team where they walk out that door thinking, we're going to do this. This is going to work. And there's so much power in that, because now we're not adversarial, we're teammates. And I get it. The parents are responsible for paying the bills and such. But we want teamship. And this, early on, I heard somebody say once, which always helped me. He said, parenting is like pushing a rope. you have to go really, really slow, and you have to start over a lot. And if you're trying to push a rope, well, it keeps getting crooked. And you're like, well, shoot. And yeah, you have to start over a lot where you go, oh, man, I missed on that. And you just start over, but you have to go really slow. And that's hard, I think, at times for parents, especially parents of little ones, because these little ones are fast, and that's the very time that they need you to be able to go slow with them and find out what's happening. And you're just trying to get to school at 8:30. You're not thinking, let's figure out what's happening with this little 7-year-old. But the 7-year-old, there's so many social constructs we make up. Well, being at school at 8:30, well, who made that up? That's just, so this 7-year-old has no concept that, oh, no, we're supposed to be at school at 8:30. First of all, they don't even understand the abstract of time. Second of all, they're like, well, they're not going to start without me because if I get there at 10, same difference. So it doesn't matter. So this 7-year-old has no concept of hurrying to get there at 8:30. The 7-year-old's thinking, well, yeah, but I was playing Legos, and this is really cool, and I'm having fun playing Legos. And that's what, and kids are so present with themselves. And we're doing all these outside, external social constructs that don't mean anything to the kid. And to be able to be present with them and realize, and again, I get it, you're still going to try to get to school at 8:30, but they don't always play out exactly the way we'd like for it to.
Yeah, I think at least for us, so that to me is more logistics than relational, which
Right.
in raising kids, logistics are real. Like
Sure.
you can't show up to school at 11 every day. They'll kick you out. So there are some realities to it. So I think for us, this to me goes back to tools. Like we, as probably most families, have dealt with being on places or two places at time at the right time, which I really care about. So it's a struggle for me. But what we've found is there's tools that we can do to make it work. So little things like, and ours are a little older, so I understand that life and certainly parenting is seasonal. But for us, what's worked is we got them alarm clocks. Like, hey, you guys wake yourself up. Like if I'm waking you up in the morning, and when we're not in a routine, I do wake them up in the morning, and it takes, which we're not in routine, so we don't care, but it takes forever. Like it'll take 20 minutes for her to get out of bed because the bed's comfortable. Where when she has her alarm clock and a written out schedule of the morning.
Wow.
So Meg will write them a schedule, and it
changes our whole.
Oh, it's crazy.
Wow.
And it can be back to back. So on Tuesday we write a schedule, on Wednesday we don't, or on Tuesday we make them, or Monday night we make them set their alarm, Tuesday night we don't. So it's not like we're in different times and they've gotten in rhythm. One is a disaster, and I'm freaking out because we're supposed to be there at 8:30 and we're leaving at 8:50, and I'm just sweaty and it's terrible.
Lots goes on.
Yeah, I do not do well with it.
No.
But then reflecting back as a dad, I'm like, this is typically how I view the lens of my entire world. Like, what can I do? It's my house. Like, I'm the parent. Why am I looking at them, you 9-year-old? Like, why are you not more responsible? And I'm sitting here going, I didn't encourage her to set the alarm. We didn't write the list. So I think that when it comes to logistics, often it's go get some tools. Go ask some people what's working for them. Find a community of intentional parents, which
is hard.
Is very difficult. So I don't want to that's just easy to do. But I think that... But I think all that goes to all of life. Like if it matters to you, go seek it out. You can find it. And and on the flip side, if it matters to you and you don't seek out tools, that's on you. That's your fault. Like you need to deal with that consequence of you've chosen that path, and
your kids have to go on it with you.
Oh, 100%. And the relationship is broken in the journey.
Yeah.
So I think that logistics are a really important piece to not gloss over, because I think for me, like I hear these conversations sometimes, and I'm looking at the camera for this one, like we are not perfect parents. So it's easy to say like, well, we just live in rainbows and unicorns.
Absolutely not.
And we have lots of moments. But I think at least for us, like what it often, I'm trying to think how often we actually like convene, me and you. It's pretty regularly that we're like, hey, let's change this. Like here's a pain point in our family, whether it's technology, whether it's being lazy, time management, whether it's there's a lot that are like, hey, these are our pain points, and where's the root of that coming from? And I think what we try to pull back to is if we're not willing to pull that root out, then we need to stop being bothered by the pain point.
Wow.
And we're probably not going to. So let's go pull the root out. And it stinks. But it's also one of those where when we do that, whether we do a technology blackout or we make schedules or buy alarms or whatever, there's a growth season, kind of a painful season. I usually think of it as like 2 weeks, but I don't know exactly what. I haven't really monitored that. But where there's pushback and there's, well, I don't want to do that. If we introduce new chores, new responsibilities, they're like, I don't want to. If you stick with it and you create a positive, hey guys, this is just this is what we do. This is how we're doing it now. In 2 weeks, now it's lifestyle.
Yeah.
Kids adapt, I think, way faster. I don't know that this is a stat, but I kind of live by, 21 days to create a habit, 90 days to create a lifestyle. I think kids, as long as you treat it like a lifestyle, 2 weeks. And they're like, yeah, this is just how we live, because they don't know a difference, and there's not this outside noise and influence. Right. So this is how our family behaves. And I do deeply believe it circles back to, if we don't do it, don't force them or encourage them to do it.
Well, and I think that goes back to knowing what you need for yourself, because I know when I started working part-time, I would get to the end of the week and Addie would say, are you going to be stressed tomorrow? And I was like, oh, that just dagger. And so what I realized is I was trying to work and do a lot for them and party plan and blah, 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 it's all these things. And we were coming back from a trip and I said, because I had 10 days to not work. And I was like, I'm planning too much. And I'm not giving them the, hey, I need your help. And so I got home and I said, hey, I work these 3 days. And on these 3 days, here's how we're going to handle the schedule. And I mean, our days, I wasn't stressed anymore. But it took me going, why am I, what is happening for me that the kids are just kind of bad. And then as soon as we did it, it's they know that they have this and this and this to do, and they know they can't come into my room. And then after that, so I think it's knowing what the pain points are for us. And I think we struggle sometimes through life, just every day is the same. We're stressed, but we don't know why, and all these things, we don't stop long enough. And once we stop, then the logistics, you can figure out the logistics once you stop and realize what you're needing and what your family's needing. So that was a big one for us, though. Yeah.
Well, and so much of what you're talking about, the connection goes, we talk about psychological isolation. So much of what you're talking about is making sure that you're not living in isolation, that you have outside input, you have outside voices that see things differently than you do. And of course, any entity, an individual, a couple, a family, a community, a business, whatever, can live in isolation, and they're going to be defeated because none of us can see ourselves. And I remember with Phyllis's mom, you of course remember Oma, she would visit, and always at the end of her visit, she would write a letter by hand, which is, who knew that was a thing? You could write stuff with your hand. But she would write a letter, and she would and she was always kind about it and very respectful, but she would just present ideas that, it seems like maybe you could do this differently, probably help the kids if you did that in a different way. And and we were always loved getting that input because it's so helpful. But she could see it, and I don't know if I'd say always. I don't like saying always, never, but I think always we were surprised by the things that she would present, and we would even ask each other, wait, is that true? Is that what we do? And then the more we considered, we're like, yeah, that is. That's exactly how that plays out. Yeah. But Oma could see it because she's from the outside coming in, and we've been living it for, whatever, weeks, months, years, and we're just not aware that that's how things are playing out. So that's such a huge, and of course, that's the very first slide on the Connection Codes Foundations, is that humans are the least likely species on the planet to survive independently. We're not designed for that. We're not supposed to function that way. We're the most likely species, not just to survive, but to thrive interdependently. And for our culture especially, and there's a lot of cultures that are like this, we just don't function that way. It's none of your business. We have all these phrases, it's none of your, mind your own business, don't air your dirty laundry. And I think in our faith communities, it may be worse because you show up on Sunday morning, and I know so many couples, they fight like cats and dogs on the drive to the church building. They get there and they are all smiles. And we even say, your Sunday best. Put on your Sunday best, and that's a disaster. And we've shared this on podcasts before that Phyllis and I, for so many years, there are 10 couples sitting around, and each couple thinks the other 9 couples are doing great. All 10 couples are drowning, thinking, all those people are doing great. I wish we could be successful like them. And literally every couple is dying, but nobody shares anything authentically.
Just you saying that, I think about when we have a difficult child. And Sky, you alluded that you were that for us.
He said passionate.
Oh, sorry, passionate, not difficult.
It's fine.
Sorry.
Just
You were the
clarify
passionate child in our family, and that passion was quite difficult at times. But I think for those that are listening that have one of those passionate children in their family, it can be very lonely at times because you don't trust. You don't feel safe sharing that with very many people, if anybody, because it's you take it on as a self-reflection, feel a lot of shame that my son is out of control. So, and I think it got worse as you got older. Like I do think, when you were young, and the tantrum, as we would label it, others would observe it. So your tantrums weren't just in private; it was by others. So then you kind of go, okay, well, everybody knows, and we've shared this on another podcast. Just that what we were given from our church community, church leaders, was spank him harder, spank him more.
I remember that.
Yes, a lot of shame and just sadness over that, because we believed that. We really believed that for you to turn into a good human being, that was what we had to do, and it didn't work. And of course, instead of having the curiosity to find out, wow, what's really happening with this little guy, we just labeled it defiance. You were just disobedient. You were defiant. And so because we labeled it that, well, you've got a defiant kid, just spank him harder, spank him more, spank him harder, spank him more. And that just was exhausting because it didn't work. And so then, eventually though, because of a school counselor that said, actually what's happening with Sky is he has a heightened anxiety that he is dealing with. And it just changed everything for us. Like, to understand what was happening with you changed everything. And we in that moment, like this school counselor gave us tools and showed us, this is what your child really needs. And man, it came at a really good time in our life where we were like, okay, we're going to radically change how we're doing things with this kid based on what we've been told. And it worked so beautifully. And I think that for a lot of parents, again, when you have a young child that is labeled, defiant, out of control, tantrums, you either lock yourself in your house and you never go anywhere, or other people witness the tantrums. But there does come an age when more is seen in secret, more is seen hidden as your child gets older. And you as a parent are dealing with that alone. You are, in public, they behave one way, but in the car or at home, they are losing it on you. And so you as a parent can become very isolated in that and very alone. And that is something, even standing around recently with a group of moms, they were talking about that. Like, they were sharing, we have a kid like that, and we don't know what to do. But there's such fear of judgment and of, you are the failure. We compare each other a lot as parents. You look at the neighbor across the street whose children are obedient, and so we are like, they've got their act together and I am a failure. And so it is that, instead of realizing, wow, see that judgment, that doesn't help you. Actually, just get curious. What's happening with your kids? Just because a kid is obedient, I mean, really, is that our ultimate goal? We just want our kid to be obedient, or are we really wanting to nurture whatever is inside that kid. Are we raising up world changers? If you're raising up a world changer, I'm not sure obedience. If you go down the road of obedience and that's your only goal, I'm not sure you're going to raise up a world changer. Yeah. But if you get curious about what's happening with your kid and you're like, I want to nurture the good in that kid. I want to learn what gets him so riled up. I want to figure out, and I want to give him tools. You won't be able to give him tools if you don't figure out what's happening with your kid. And then he grows up, and maybe as an adult, he'll get his own help. And he'll lean in and go, man, I need to get some tools because I want to channel this in a good way.
Yeah. I have lots of thoughts.
Lots of thoughts.
So
okay.
I think on that last piece, we talk a lot about this. I think on that last piece, what I would consider positive pressure as a dad all the time is Asher, our oldest son, our only son, is named Asher, and he looks to me probably still as the coolest person in the world or close to.
Well, other than me.
Other than Papa.
Everybody knows that.
But there's still that relationship of like, if Dad's doing it, I'm doing it, but also like Dad's doing it the best. Like he's the best. And I take it as positive pressure to never stop growing. Because I know that relationship will shift. It has already. He's 13, so there is he's taller than me, which is painful. But anyway. So there is some of that where he's becoming a man and there is less of like superhero dad, but there's still very much like I'm impressed by Dad. Yeah. And I would challenge anyone listening to that. If you're not impressed with yourself, your kids are not impressed by you. And that is super heavy and has weighed very heavy on me as a dad, but it's convicting. It's like, go be impressed by yourself. I love the adage of like, you're the only main character in your story. Make it a really cool story. Like, go be a superhero. Because if you're not your kid's superhero, somebody else is going to be. And I don't trust people. So like, I don't want someone else to be their superhero. I want to be that guy for them that's always growing and that they can go to. Because right now there's a spread just based on time. So you said that eventually they may grow up and get their own tools. I want to encourage that. Go get your own tools. But I want to always, to some degree, be a resource for my kids. And I want them to look at me as a man that is always gathering tools. I'm obsessed with growth. We're obsessed with growth. Like it is, I only get to live this life one time, and I want to gather as much as I can from a wisdom standpoint as possible. Not exclusively, but a big part because I'm a dad. I chose that. So I want the tools to pass down. Here, Ash, here's something new. As a 13-year-old, as a 30-year-old, as a 50-year-old, I want to keep growing. So I think that is...
Let me say one thing, too.
Yeah.
Because what I have seen, even in the days that you feel like you're failing or like you haven't handled something really well, our kids call him out. And I think that that's a really cool thing because in his failure, he's done, because we all fail. Parenting is one of the worst and the best. I mean, I talk to so many people, they're like, it's the most like, just this gift, but also sometimes I want to cut off my right arm because it's so hard and I'm just like freaking out, But I think that is something as you're parenting through the hard things, it's really cool to watch when your kids will call you out because it kind of clicks of like, oh, they heard it. Like they got it.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful they're willing to go, Mom, quit. Dad, quit. And we have older kids. That's not going to happen when kids are 3 or 4. Well, maybe. I don't know.
Be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, maybe.
I would say we invite it.
We do invite it. You do have to invite it, I think.
Like, just to be clear, we're never like in a heated situation and one of them goes, Dad, that's enough. Like, it's not that. No. But they certainly will come back. Yeah. Actually, really just to me, not to you, mainly because you don't really do anything wrong. But
that's not true.
Well, but like our interactions, I'll more often than not, I'll come to them and be like, hey, I handled that poorly. Like I really let that get out of hand. I let my emotions control the situation, and I didn't. Usually they quote some Connection Codes quote of some sort. But
way to go, kids!
Yeah, and
they're my favorite grandchildren.
And both of them, almost without fail, will be like, yeah, yeah, you did handle that really poorly. And I'm like, okay, well, let's move on. Because that's it. But
You could have defended me a little bit.
I do think that's what I was like, dadgummit, like you would have too, but that doesn't help.
No, but with boys, and especially a boy that's very high testosterone, very like, man, I'm a man, whatever. For him to look at Sky and to say, you're being mean to mom. Like, that's a cool thing,
That's incredible teamship.
Right.
Yep,
and so,
absolutely.
and then I feel like, oh, he sees me. Because when you were talking about the lonely side of, as his mother, it was so lonely. Like, because I did feel judged by a lot of other mothers. Because my child would lose it to a point where their children would not lose it that way. And that's why I want to say, like, some of these kids are different. Like, there are some kids that are just, they're hard. And I have a couple friends that have them, and it's like, you just, like, want to, like, hold them and be like, we're going to make it, we're going to do it, we're going to make it. Because I do think that there are some that are harder than others.
100%.
And it's so lonely. And to watch that when he goes, hey, don't be mean to mom, it's like, oh, he sees me, and like, that's what's so crazy is even as a parent, like some of the intense feelings are like, do they not care about me? And I'm sad. Does my child not care about me? And it can feel that way, So I don't know. I just think that that's something that I want to encourage people that have the younger kids as they get older. If you just you're in the trenches, but you just keep going. When they get older, it's a season. Because for me, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this for the next 18 years, and you get really, really overwhelmed. But it's like each stage they get just a little bit better, and you see this where like their friends think they're incredible, and their teachers are like, what have you done with this kid? And I'm like, I don't know, because he doesn't always act this way at home, But if you keep at it, you're going, as they get older, you're going to look and go, wow, what we did. You have like the fruit of everything you've worked for. So.
Absolutely.
If you work for it.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Well, the tools. I love that, Sky, what you said. Just that, it's not just, you'll just hang in there and you'll get lucky.
Yeah, it's not a time thing.
No, it's not. Yeah. It's really going, wow, okay, I need tools. And I need to be curious. I need to be curious in this parenting thing. And I need to figure this out. And I may, if what I'm doing isn't working, then I need to find some other tools. And I need to talk to some people I need to surround myself. I know, Sky, you talk about this a lot. Surround yourself with people that are actually living intentionally versus it is.
And
but
when you do, text me who they are, because I'm looking.
Okay.
We'll be your friend.
But it is like that makes such a difference when you go, you know what? I want more for my family, for my kids. I want to lean into curiosity, but it can be a lonely road, and you can be criticized for the choices that you make. And we definitely went through that season, especially with you as a son and the trouble you got into as a teenager. And yet now I look at our relationship, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I do run across some of those families that were so critical of us, and I hurt for what they now have, which is so sad, because they don't have connection with their kids anymore, as their kids are now adults. So I'm so thankful for what we share.
Can I say this too, because you saying that? Find people that love your kids. Find people that love your kids, because we are now in a community of people.
Do it, girl.
That love our son so much. Like, so much. And we didn't always have that. And, like, I tell them all the time, like, you are so special. Because not everyone has loved him all the time, And I don't just stay around these people because they're just, like, the people you hang out with. Like, find people that love your kids, because if not, just be the how many you are, but just be you. Like, just be, because you can grow a lot. I'm not saying to isolate yourself. I'm not, but I'm just saying, if you've got a community of people that don't cherish your children, try to find somebody else. And it's not easy. It's not an easy road, but I'm telling you, it's so worth it to keep moving through that. People that love your kids.
Absolutely.
I view it as like, protect your family.
Yes.
Like, protect, and we have done a poor job at this. So I want to keep going back to that. Like, we're trying to figure this thing out, but that is something I'm convicted on. I view it as, I would rather just be the four of us always, and this is, I think, an important piece, always actively looking for a tribe, than to just try to fit in. I have no interest in that anymore. I'll never do it again. And I think it is bigger than, they're not our favorite. Or they're kind of rude to our son, but they love Addie, or whatever. Or they're a good time, or we have the same hobbies, or whatever. Like, I think this is big picture. The path that you as a family are going to take is greatly dictated by the people you surround yourself with in every area of life. So be intentional with that. And that is, we're kind of on the back end, but we're in somewhat of a season of a transitional season with our tribe, the community that we hang around, and you'll know it when you find it.
Yeah.
Like when you said, like when you find people that love you well, that inspire you, that live intentionally, you'll notice. Like, these are not people that will pass by and you go, I don't know who to look for. Like, look until you know. And when you find them, you'll definitely know. Circling back to what you said, just as far as raising me and my sisters, specifically my older sister. So I guess you've already said this, there's 4 of us. Yep. So my oldest sister, Echo, are we saying names, or we can't say names? I'm saying Echo. We were super close growing up, and we were, I would say, polar opposites in almost every aspect of life. And I was recently talking to her, and I don't remember the topic, but she referred back to something about our childhood, and she said, oh yeah, you didn't have to worry about that because you didn't listen to anybody. And she was just talking about some of the trauma she had experienced through religion and some of the things that she had interpreted that really defined some of the paths that she went on. And she presented it as though I would know. And I was like, when the heck did you hear that? Because we went to the same church. We were in the same groups. We were connected. I mean, we were together all the time. And she was like, you're unbelievable. Like, you just didn't hear any of it. Or my filter, and I still live this someday, like, if it doesn't make sense to me, I'm like, not interested. And I think that is the silver lining with the world changers, is what we call them. Because I think that is the reality. They're either the disasters, like they'll really go downhill. And I think this is not entirely on the parents, but predominantly. They'll either be disasters or they'll be world changers. And they're responsible for their direction in life. Like, I don't want to put too much pressure, but certainly as we're talking about parenting, like, that is a big part of it. And that realization that some of the most difficult aspects of those children are their greatest strengths if you can get them there. Yeah. And talking to Echo recently was just that I got to be free of so many of those traumatic experiences because I wasn't interested in them. I was passionate about other things, and that's a gift. Like, and this is recently. This is probably in the last 6 months. I've never thought about that. I'm 36. I never heard it, never thought about it. And the way she explained it, it was like, oh yeah, that stuff didn't get in because it didn't make sense to me. Where she heard it, and she was like, I was just always quiet and listening and being told what to do. And now she's not that way, but it was an incredible journey for her to get to where she would stand up for herself. And I didn't have to go on that journey. So
true. Wow. Well, love just this time with you guys. And I hope we can do it again. And I know, even the fact that y'all said yes to showing up today means the world, but it's because some of our listeners asked. Like, and I thought, oh, how cool is that people really do want to know more about our family, more about our kids, and how, life affected you growing up and where you are now in life. So appreciate your openness and just even talking about your kids just so openly. And I love that. And one thing we do on our show, which we should have prepared you for, sorry, is that we do the wheel. At the end of each one. And we would love for you guys to do the wheel and do it over parenting, do it over whether it's current parenting or just your journey in parenting. So
do we have one, or we have to remember them?
We do have one, but I bet you could remember all 8.
Easily.
8 words in the language.
Yeah.
Not that many.
Yeah.
So which one of you wants to start?
I'll start, but I'm thinking like one's coming. There it is.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Whew, thank goodness. Love it.
Okay. So the wheel, specifically to parenting or events that have happened recently?
Just
through this conversation, I feel anger that I didn't seek this information on that, even that we're talking about now, that I feel like I live by to some degree sooner as a parent.
Yeah.
I feel shame about that to some degree, that I didn't take the time that now I view as a must to be a present, intentional dad.
Yeah.
I feel a ton of guilt about how the first few years with our son went, because we were clueless, and I would say that we took the majority of our advice, but it wasn't advice as much as just like whatever dripped in from people that we did not want to emulate. So, and that's interesting, the way that you spoke to that, of these were the most critical people of our parenting style. We weren't interested in emulating, yet we took that on as that's how we're supposed to behave and treat him. I feel a little fear that people listening to this won't be able to digest it and use it. It'll just kind of be this overwhelming, like, I don't know how to do any of that, because it does feel like a lot at times. Lonely. I'll come back to lonely. These are the difficult ones for me. Sad. I'm going to have to come back to that one. Hurt, I'll probably have to come back to. Joy.
There's been pain. There's been pain in your parenting.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I've felt sadness about more of those same things, that I didn't seek the tools out early to have confidence in what we were doing. And I probably, I don't know if this is all the way, but there's probably some loneliness of wanting to grow as a parent and having a really, really difficult time finding like-minded people that are really focused on living intentionally in their best lives. Because that is, I mean, it's at the top of my priority list of really wanting to grow and be the best I can. I feel a lot of joy doing this. This was more fun. I felt some fear walking into it, but it was a fun conversation. So I enjoyed it.
Wow.
My turn.
Yep.
That's cool.
Okay, I feel anger. I think about the way the world sometimes wants you to be the perfect parent and the child and the relationship that that creates between families. And I think what you're talking about, there's not always enough openness. And if people open up, then a lot of this stuff goes away. So shame definitely in younger years. I was 24 when I had the first one, and I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, and I was still wanting to be a kid myself. And I think that really played into a lot of my parenting of, I don't know, this is a lot of responsibility. It's not very fun. Like, okay. Guilt, same thing. Just, I handled things, ways that I shouldn't have handled it. And I feel guilt because I know that there's pain in that for our kids. Fear. I think I feel fear that people will listen to this and think we have it together. And we're really striving to have it together, but we definitely have moments that are not great. So, lonely. I do think it is hard to find families at times where they either really love your kids or they allow your kids to mess up and they still really, really love them. And they're willing to come to you and say, hey, your kid did this. And then you can have a conversation about it. Sad. I think same thing. Sad that's kind of the world we live in. Hurt. There's been hurt in our parenting where people didn't accept our kids at times. And joy that we're on a good journey, you know? Like, there's still times where I'm like, what are we doing? But most days don't feel that way anymore, and they used to feel that every day. So, I think we're on a good journey.
That's amazing. Thank you.
So can you close us out?
Yeah, and we really want you to know, first of all, hopefully some of these things were really, really beneficial to you because you need this.
You deserve this.
So let's do this.
That was incredible. Thank you so much for joining us. If you have a friend that's a parent, and I'm sure you do, this is the episode to send and share. So often, parents are struggling in silence because we're experiencing shame or we feel lonely. We just don't know who to share our struggles with. So send them this episode. They will appreciate it so much because it will help them feel seen and less alone in their journey. So thank you again for being here. If you are thinking, I need more, I need these tools, like you keep talking about tools, give me a tool. The best place to start is go to connectioncodes.co/stop yelling. This is where you can get access to our webinar where we are teaching you the tool to help your kids learn to better communicate without yelling. So connectioncodes.co/stop yelling and get access to that webinar.